Okay, so then can we start? So some more to join?
Yeah, sir.
We can start.
Okay, we can start.
Let's start.
All right. Okay. Okay. So last week, after we complete the price theory, we started production theory. So under the production theory, we discussed in order to maximize total revenue, in addition to price, the company organization has to manage production also, right? So production, and so there are several key production concepts. So we started to discuss the main concepts, because we discussed the when we talk about production or cost of production. When we analyze production and cost of production, the time period also very important, because we discuss mainly in economics, we talk about two time periods, short run and long run. The short run means at least one factor is fixed. That means there are fixed factors, right? At least one factor is fixed. Therefore, in the short run, the production can be increased only by increasing variable factors, right?
Yeah.
Because some factors are fixed, right? So production can be increased only by increasing variable factors. But in the long run, there are no fixed factors. All the factors variable, right? So in the short run, since the production can be increased only by changing variable factors, production can be increased only up to a certain level. So right, because some factors are fixed. Even if we, right, so that is what we call, right, we discussed that under the short run production function, because only the variable factors can be changed, while other factors remain constant. Mainly the factor which differentiate the short run and long run is capital, because capital, that is the main factor which is not possible to change very quickly for many organizations. And another important point we discussed relating to short run and long run, this short run and long run, these are not specific time period, right? These are not fixed time period for all the organization. It is not like in accounts. In accounts, we know current, non-current, when we categorize assets and liabilities, whatever the organization, whatever the industry, it is the same condition, same criteria. That means current means 1 year, non-current means more than 1 year. But here, it is not a fixed time period, right? So this short run and long run, these are not same. These are not, these time periods are not same for all the organization, right? These time periods are not same. Not same for all the organization, right? Not same for all the organization. All the industries, all the organizations, right? So because it will change from industry to industry, it will change from company to company, right? It is not same for all the industries, so all the firms, right? Because the length of the short run and long run depends on the several factors, ability of the firm to change the factors, and because in certain industries, capital, the organization may be able to change capital within a relatively short period of time. So that means maybe few months. Therefore, short run may be few months. But in some industries, to change capital, it might require a fairly long period. Therefore, short run may be several years, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, this short run and long run, these are not same for all the industries of all the firms. That will be mainly determined by the nature of the time period required to change the fixed factor, and to some extent, this is actually given in more detail in the note that I have shared with you, right? They are actually there was one note, this production theory and cost of production. There I have explained it in more detail. So you may have seen in that firm's behavior, right? So in that note, so it is given. So can you see this firm's behavior note? Oh, you see the folder.
Can see.
Can see. Okay, right. So under this firm's behavior here, so this short run and long run, it is explained clearly.
Sorry, you have to click on.
That file is not
Right.
open, sir.
File is not open, sir.
Yeah, hold on. Right. So can you see now?
Yes.
Right. So, so under this firm's behavior, so it is given the short run and long run. So short run, right. So we know the meaning of short run, and the additional point is given here. The short run is not of the same duration in all industries. The length of the short run is influenced by technological considerations such as how quickly equipment can be manufactured and installed. This is what I mentioned earlier. In some industries, it may be very easy to install and manufacture this equipment and to manufacture and installing of this equipment. But in some other industries, it might require a fairly long period, right? Therefore, short run may be will be different from industry to industry. And in addition to that, these things may be influenced to some extent by the price firm is willing to increase its capacity. So the ability to spend for the factors also affect into this short, right? So in the long run also we know the meaning is the long run means there are no fixed factors. That is also not a specific time period, but that varies among industries, right? So here it is given long run is also not a specific period of time. It is not a specific period of time, but varies among industries, right? And so in addition to this, right, in addition to this main time period, short run and long run, sometimes in economics we consider another time period because that is called very long run. So that means not only the factors, even the technology can be changed, right? So that means when we talk about short run and long run, so we mainly consider the technology, right? We analyze this short run and long run at given level of technology. But very long run means that is a time period long enough to change even the technology applicable for the products that will lead to better or new products, innovations, right? Unlike the short run and long run, the very long run is concerned with the situations in which the technological possibility is open to the firm subject to change, right? So this will lead to new and improved products, right? So that means so when we talk about this short run and long run, we mainly consider technologies at a given level, but right. So even the time period long to change even the technology, so that is usually called the very long run, right? So very long run. So that means even the technology applicable for the product can be changed. So right. So that is the period long enough to change even the technology, right? So then so these time periods are important when we analyze the production function, and we started with the short run production function, right? So we started with short run production function, and there we discussed in the short run only the variable factor can be changed. We mainly start with labor because that is the easiest factor to change, right? And when we change the variable factor, we discuss the behavior of the production under three different categories. So we discussed three different concepts of production: total production, average production, and marginal production, right? Generally, the nature, the general behavior of these production functions we discuss, usually when the variable factor increase continuously, the total production will increase at the beginning at an increasing rate, right? It will increase at an increasing rate up to a certain level. After that, it will increase at a decreasing rate. Still, it will increase, but at a decreasing rate. And then it will reach a maximum level because only the variable factors are changed, variable factor change, right? Other factors remain constant. Therefore, if the variable factor increase even beyond the optimum capacity, then total production will not increase. Then it will start to decrease, right? So the normal behavior, right? So this is the normal behavior of the production function, right? The total production will increase up to a certain level, then it will start to decrease because only a variable factor is changed. And based on that, this average production and marginal production completely based on total production, right? So average production means the production per unit of input, right? So how do you calculate the average production? We calculate average production, total production divided by the input, in this case labor, right? So it is labor, total production divided by labor, input, in this case labor, right? Total production divided by labor. And what is the meaning of marginal production? We discuss the meaning of marginal production. What is the meaning of marginal production?
Change in the total production divided by change in the labor.
Exactly. So it is change in the total production divided by change in labor. In other words, right? So what is the meaning? The meaning is it is the cost per additional unit, right?
Yeah.
If the firm increase, sorry, not cost. In this case, production per additional input, right? So in this case, because marginal concept we can use for all the concepts, not only production, right? In mathematics, usually to denote the change we use delta, right? So therefore, the meaning is what is the change in total production, right? As you very correctly mentioned, the meaning of marginal production, it is the change in total production per unit change in labor, right? That is the meaning of marginal production, right? The meaning of marginal production is this, right? So it is the change in total production per unit change in labor, right? So that means when the firm change the labor by 1, right? What is the change in total production, right? So that is the meaning of marginal production, right? So in mathematics, to denote change, we use delta, right? So that's why here it is change in total production divided by change in labor, meaning it is the production per additional unit of labor, right? So additional unit of it, right? So then, so based on the total production, we discuss average production and marginal production. There also we observe average production also increase up to certain point, then start to decrease. Marginal production also increase up to certain point, then decrease, right? Which means all three production function, we can see it increase up to a certain level, start to decrease. We use a special term for this, right? What is that? That is called
diminishing marginal returns.
Right, so that is called the law of diminishing returns, right? The law of diminishing returns, right? The law of diminishing returns. That means when only one factor is changed, while the other factors remain constant, production from the variable factor gradually decrease, right? Yeah. So all production function will start to decrease gradually, and we can see all three production function decrease. Out of the three production function, what is the production function start to decrease first? It is the marginal production. Yeah, so that's why you mentioned earlier. It is sometimes it's okay to say the law of diminishing marginal returns, right? Because marginal is a factor that start to decrease first, right? And so when we draw a graph based on these production values, we get a curve like this. Three curves like this. Then this is total production, marginal production, and average production. As we can see, marginal production start to decrease first. That is where the diminishing return starts, right? Diminishing return starts. And based on these production curves, we can identify 3 stages of production. In order to identify these 3 stages of production, we have to use 2 important relationships, right? Between, among these production curves. Right, the one relationship is between total production and marginal production. The other relationship is between average production and marginal production. The relationship between total production and marginal production is when the total production is maximum, marginal production is 0, right? And that is right when the total production is maximum, average production is 0. So that is very important relationship. Actually, you will see this relationship is not only applicable for production. If you analyze revenue, you will see this relationship, right? So when you get the revenue of any firm under different levels of different activity level, you will see total revenue will be maximum when marginal revenue is 0, right? So this is a very important relationship in economy, right? So economic theory explain this important relationship. The total function will be maximum when the marginal function is 0, right? So this is applicable for many factors, right? Production, utility, revenue, profit, right? All these functions, total value will be maximum when the marginal value is 0, right? And so that is one important concept in economics, right? And in addition to that, we also saw another important relationship, that is between average production and marginal production. That is, marginal production curve will cross the average production when the average production is maximum, right?
Maximum.
So, yeah, so marginal production curve crosses the average production when average production is maximum, right? And based on this also, we can identify that important relationship between average production and marginal production. And based on these two relationships, we discussed we can divide the production process into 3 stages. And the stage 1 is from the origin to the point where average production is maximum, and stage 2 is from the point where average production is maximum to the point where the total production is maximum, and the stage 3 represent the range total production is falling. So then we discuss usually rational producer will select to operate in stage 2, right? So stage 2 will be selected by a rational producer. Rational producer will never move to stage 3, right? In order to maximize the production, the producer has to move to the stage 2, right? So stage 2, one important point is there, both average production and marginal production falling, but positive. Right,
Yeah.
marginal production is positive means as long as marginal production is positive, total production is increasing.
Yeah.
Right, that means, right, so that is the meaning. So whenever, right, that's why here we discuss when total production is rising, marginal production is positive. Therefore, as long as marginal production is positive, whether it is increasing or decreasing, if it is positive, total production is increasing.
Yeah.
So that is one point for a producer. Right. So then, based on this, a few key, few more points we need to discuss under the production theory. Right. Another important thing. Right. So here we have considered the short-run production function. Right. But when we consider the long-run production function, right? If we consider the long-run production function, right? Long-run means we know there are no fixed factors. That means all
Every
the
factor
factors.
is variable.
Yeah, all the factors variable. Even capital is variable, right? In that case, both capital and labor can be changed, right? Both capital and labor can be changed. So long run means, right, that is the meaning, right? Unlike short run, in the short run, we know there are fixed factors, but in the long run, not only labor, capital also can be changed. There are no fixed factors, right? In that case, if the firm can change both labor and capital, then we can see how to identify the optimum point for the producer, right? How to identify the optimum point for the producer, right? In order to identify that, in order to analyze this long run production, right, special set of curves are used, right? So in order to identify that, so that means when both the labor and capital can be changed, right? So here we assume both the labor and capital can be changed. When both labor and capital can be changed, so we can see then we can analyze the long run production function. Long run production function we can analyze, right? Here, in order to analyze this, one very important curve is used, right?
Isopod.
Yeah, so that is known as isopod. So we'll see the meaning of that. For example, suppose a particular firm is planning to produce a certain level of output, say, for example, 100 units. Right now, to produce 100 units, so they can change both labor and capital. Produce 100 units, right? So when the firm is going to use labor and capital, so what do you think? There is only one input combination? No, there are a number of different input combinations to produce 100 units.
There are a number of
different input combination, right? For example, if they want to use only very few labor, right, and they want to use more capital, right? So if that is the case, if that is the condition, suppose if the firm is using only one labor and if they want to produce 100 units, maybe let's say 6 units of capital is required. Right now, if they right, so but this may be one combination of inputs to produce 100 units, but we know this is not the only way to produce 100 units, right? So 100 units can be produced using different input combination, right? For example, suppose a firm is planning to increase labor, right? So firm decide to increase labor, but they want to produce only 100 units. Now what will be the capital requirement? They need same level of capital or different level of capital. So
Different level of capital.
different level. Different means they need more or less.
Less.
They need less, right? Because if they increase one input, right, then they can decrease the other input, right? Maybe they require they require less capital. And if they increase labor further, right? If they increase labor further, so they can decrease capital, further, right? And if they increase labor, right, some, to a greater level, so then they can decrease capital. So in this way, so when the firm is increasing labor, they can decrease capital. They can decrease capital, right? So if the firm increase labor, they can decrease capital, right? Now that means all these points, all these points represent important point, right? What is that? So these are different combinations of inputs produce 100 units,
Yeah.
right? That means if we draw a graph, right? If we draw a graph using this information, right? If using this information, if you draw a graph, right? So we will get a graph like this, right? You will get a graph like this, right? Now, what is the nature of this graph?
So downward slope.
Downward sloping. And what is the special feature of this graph? Special feature of this curve? That is a very special feature of this curve, right? So this curve, we can see these different points, these different dots represent factor combination, input combination. This is the level of capital, this is the level of labor, and this is another level of capital and labor. Right now, there is a very special feature of this curve. What is that?
Indifference
Factor
curve.
combinations are completely different, but one thing is same. Yeah,
Indifference.
one thing is same. Yeah, what is indifferent? Right? What is indifferent? One thing is same. Even though the factor combinations are different, one thing is same. What is this? Same value. What is the same thing? Quantity. Quantity is same. So different combinations of input, but quantity is same. So these are different factor combinations to produce 100 units. This is one combination to produce 100 units. This is another combination to produce 100 units. This is another combination to produce 100 units. That's why, this in economics, a couple of, several Latin terms are used, right? Latin terms are used, right? So the point, the word you mentioned earlier also, right? One of those Latin terms. So it is, this curve is called Isopod curve, right? As you mentioned earlier, this curve is called Isopod curve, right? Iso means what? Iso, the meaning of iso is same quantity, same quantity. That's why this is called Isopod curve, right? So this is called Isopod curve, right? Why? Quantity is same, right? Same quantity. Input combinations are different, but quantity is same, right? So in your recommended textbook also, this Isopod curves are given, right? Last day, the short run production functions, I gave you the page numbers for you to refer, right?
Page
And
179.
this one, yeah.
Page 179.
Yeah, so this long run Isopod curve is also given from page number 223, right? So here multiple input case, right? Multiple input case. So you can see the Isopod curve is given in page number 223 to so it's continue, right? So in page number 224, you can see this type of Isopod curve, right? So Isopod curve, right? The meaning right? The meaning of this isocon curve, right? The meaning is quantity is same. Iso, that that is maybe Latin or Greek term. The meaning of iso is same. Iso same quantity, right? So that is the special feature of this curve, right? So isocon curve means what? Isocon curve means different, right? So this curve shows different combinations of inputs which can be used to produce a given level of output, right? That is the meaning of isocon curve, right? So isocon curve, the meaning is this. Isocon curve, right? The meaning is the curve which shows, it is the curve which shows different combinations of inputs, right? Different combinations of inputs which can be used to produce a given level of output, given or specific, right? Given, we can also call specific uh, specific level of output, right? That is the meaning of isocon curve, right? Isocon curve, it is a curve that shows the different combinations of inputs which can be used to produce a given level of output. That is the meaning of isocon curve, right? So isocon curve refers to, right, the meaning of isocon curve is, right? So that is a very special curve. You can see different completely different combinations of input. So when we are moving towards this point, you can see more labor. If more labor used, less capital, right? So but right, that means if the firm is going to use factor combination like this, which indicate the firm is using mainly labor intensive production technique. But if the firm is using input combination somewhere here, that indicate the firm is using capital intensive production technique, right? There are different combinations of inputs which can be used to produce a given level of output. So that is what we call iso, right? That is the meaning, right? Now, the important thing, so if the firm wants to increase the output, right? Now this is the isocon curve to produce 100 units, right? So this is the isocon curve. These are the input combinations which shows, right? These are the input combinations to produce 100 units. Now, if the firm wants to produce, say, 200 units, what will be the condition? Now, right, if the firm wants to produce 200 units, what will be the condition? Right? So now, suppose the firm is planning to produce 200 units, and we want to identify this is the isocon curve which shows the factor combinations to produce 100 units. If the firm wants to produce 200 units, right? So what will be the condition here? If the firm is going to use the same level of capital, what will be the requirement of labor?
Yeah.
They have to use more labor.
More
right?
labor.
If they are going to use the same level of labor, what will be the capital requirement? They need more capital,
More capital.
or they need to increase both,
Both.
right? So, for example, so we can identify what are the factor combinations to produce 200 units, right? 200 units. So they may be required to labor, right? So two labor and then maybe more capital, right? And when they increase labor in this way, right? So then what will happen? So they can reduce capital, right? Gradually, right? Say. Right. Now, if we draw a graph from this, right? From using both these values, right? So we get a graph like this, right? We get a graph like this, right? Now that means so this the second curve, right? This in this case this ash color curve that shows the isocon curve to produce 200 units, right? So this is the curve which shows the factor combinations to produce 100 units, and this is for 200 units, right? This is for 200 units, and if the firm wants to produce more, they have to increase inputs, right, further. They have to increase right inputs further. That means when you get a set of isocon curve, what is the meaning of that? So that is the important point we need to identify here, right? Understand here, right? If the firm wants to produce more, they have to use more inputs. That means the isocon curve, we can include the this may be 400 units. This is maybe 100 units, and the next one may be for 200 units. So, right, in this way, if the firm wants to produce more, they have to use more inputs, right? So the lower curve shows low output, but higher curve shows high output, right? So in this way, if the firm wants to produce more and more, what will happen? They need to use more and more inputs, right? Large level of inputs, right? That's why the isocon curves, these isocon curves, so shows the different combinations of inputs to produce a given level of output. Now, what is the feature of this curve? These are the different input combinations to produce 100 units. This curve shows these are the different combinations to produce 200 units, right? Which means to produce more units, the firm has to use more inputs, right? And since it is the long run, if the firm can increase the inputs because all the inputs are variable, right? All the inputs are variable. So if they want to produce more, they have to increase uh, these inputs, right? So that is what they have to do. So if they right, so then right. So when you get this graph, right? So and if you incorporate another curve here, right? So what will happen? So this the higher curve shows large output and lower curve shows low output, right? So right, so one more curve so will be there, right? In this way, larger curve shows high output, small lower curve shows low output, right? Then so a higher curve, right? Any producer, right? We know the producer is willing to produce more. If the producer is willing to produce more and larger curve shows larger output, lower curve shows lower level of output, right? Then, because in the short run we know, right, the production will increase up to up to a certain level, then start to decrease. But here it increases continuously. As long as you increase inputs, the output will increase, right? So if you increase inputs further, it may be 300 units, 400 units, 500 units. So this can be increased continuously. Then how can we identify what is the optimum level for the producer? What is the maximum level for a particular firm? Maximum production level for a particular firm. How can we identify that? Right. So how can we identify what is the maximum production a particular firm can reach? So how can we identify that? Right. So this point is that clear? Because if the firm increase inputs, the output will start to increase. Right. Output will increase. Right. The higher curve shows larger output, lower curve shows low output. The producer is willing to produce more and more. Right. That means when they increase inputs, the production will increase. Maybe 300 units, maybe 400 units, 500 units. then how can you identify what is the maximum production a particular firm can reach? So how can you identify that? Right? So in order to identify that, reaching a larger output means what? The firm has to use more inputs.
More inputs.
More inputs, right? So that means the maximum production level the firm can reach depends on what? Depends on the ability of the firm to purchase inputs, right? What is the maximum level? Because, right, production is increasing when the inputs increase. Therefore, right, the firm is willing to produce more and more. But the maximum level the firm can produce depends on what is the maximum level they can spend for the inputs. Right? What is the maximum level they can, right? Even though firm can produce more when they increase inputs, but they should increase inputs. They have to spend more. Therefore, that depends on the firm's ability to spend, right? The ability to spend, right? So that also we have to identify, right? What is the maximum level the firm can spend for the inputs, right? For that, we need another important information for this particular analysis, right? Suppose that depends on what is the total amount firm can spend, right? So suppose the total expenditure the firm can spend for the two inputs is, right, for example, say $1,000, then we need to know what is the price of capital, what is the price of labor, right? Price of labor, right? Therefore, suppose the price of labor is 100, price of capital is 100, price of labor is 50. Now, using this, we can identify what are the different levels of labor and capital this firm can purchase, right? What is the maximum level of labor and capital this firm can purchase, right? So we can identify that, right? For example, suppose if the firm is going to use the total amount they can spend for the inputs, right? So this shows the information to purchase inputs. Suppose the total amount firm can spend is $1,000, right? $1,000. The price of capital unit is 100. The price of labor unit is 50. If the firm is going to use only labor to produce this product, what is the maximum level of labor they can use? What is the maximum level of labor? That's easy.
20.
Yeah, 20, right? That is, we have to divide the total expenditure by price of labor. That is 20, right? If they are going to use 20 units of labor, what is the level of capital they can use? They can't use it.
0.
Right? 0, right? Or they can use, right? So they can decrease this, right? So now they can use maybe 18, maybe 16, right? 14. So in this way, they can decrease the use of labor. When they decrease the use of labor, then what will happen to the right? What will happen to the level of capital they can use? The level of capital they can use will increase, right? So then, so they can use how many capital units? One capital, right? Because 18 units of labor means that is 900. So which means they can use 1 unit of capital, right? So here 2 units of capital, 3 units of capital, right? So here we can see they can increase the level of capital they can use one. Sorry, here we have to increase.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So right. So this shows the different levels of labor and capital. Is that clear? So this shows the different levels of labor and capital they can use subject to this information. Right. If the total amount firm can spend for the input is 1,000, the price of capital is 100, price of labor is 50. Here, this shows all the possible combinations of inputs. Is that clear? This
So this
shows
TE, this TE can be either outlay or budget, right?
Sorry? Yeah. It can be budget or the total outlay. So it is total outlay, or even we can say it's a budget. So what is the total amount they can spend for the inputs? Total, right? Total outlay, total budget. This is the price of capital. This is the price of labor. These are the different combinations. So this is one combination. They can use either 20 units of labor and 0 units of capital, or 18 units of labor and 1 units of capital. So all these points shows the different combinations of inputs, right? And using this, if you draw a graph, right? So you will see, right? So you will see what are the different levels of, right? So you will get a straight line like this,
Iso cost.
right? And for this curve, we use a special term. What is that?
Iso cost.
ISO cost. This is called ISO cost curve, right? What is the reason, right? What is the meaning of this ISO cost? Why it is called ISO cost? You know, at any point of this curve, what is the total outlay? So if you calculate the total outlay, right? So if you calculate the total outlay for any of these input combination, right? So what will be the total outlay? Here, 20 units of labor and 0 units of capital. 20 units of labor means 1000.
1000.
Right? And 18 units of labor means 900, here 100,000. If you calculate the total outlay at, for any of these, factor combination, what will be the answer? Answer is 1000. Answer is 1000. That means total cost is same. What is the special feature of this curve? At any point of the curve, cost is same. That's why it's called ISO cost, right? It is called ISO cost because if you calculate the total outlay, total cost of this, factor combination at any point, it is.
So this linear shape of the curve mainly because of the factor price is constant, right?
Exactly. So this is since we use the same prices, whether you buy 20 units of labor or right 1 unit of labor, it's same. So that's why this curve is a straight line. Since we use that assumption, right? Okay, that's a good point. In fact, I need to talk about the features of isocon curve. When you see the isocon curve, what is the nature of the isocon curve?
It's downward
Isocon curve,
sloping
what is
negative.
the downward sloping? Downward sloping. That means it is negatively slope. Negatively slope, right? Why? What is the meaning of that? If you want to decrease one factor, definitely you have to increase the use of the other. Right?
Yeah.
That means isocon curve. Okay, that's thank you. You talk about the features of the isocon curve, and that is important. We can see important features of isocon curves also, right? Isocon curves has several important features, right? Isocon curves several important features, right? So one thing, right, as you mentioned, isocon curves are negatively slow, right? Negatively slow. Right, isocon curves are negatively slow, right? Isocon curves negatively slow, right? And what is this shape? Not only negatively slope, right? Usually isocon curve will not be a straight line, right? Why? Oh, what is this shape? For this shape, we use a special term. And I think I mentioned very briefly when we talk about the production possibility curve in the first session.
Convex to origin?
Convex.
Convex to the origin, right? Isocon curves are convex to the origin, right? So this is called convex to the origin. Convex to the origin, right? Because when we increase one input, the number of units that can be reduced from the other will not be same. It will gradually decrease, right? So that is called convex to the origin, right? So convex to the origin. And so in addition to that, there is another feature. So is it possible to have two isocon curves? Is it possible to have another isocon curve like this? That means, is it possible to cross two isocon curve?
No, impossible.
That is not possible, right? That is impossible, right? Why? Because the main meaning of isocon curve, right? We know the meaning is at any point of the curve, production is same. Quantity is same. If the quantity is same, it is not possible to cross isocon,
Yeah.
right? Because we know higher curve shows higher output, lower curve shows lower output. If two isocon curve cross, right, we know after the point of intersection, one curve has larger output, and below that, the other curve has the large output. That is not possible,
Yes.
right? That's why the isocon curves cannot cross, right? So it is not possible to cross, right? So isocon curves cannot cross each other, cannot cross each other, right? So these three bond features are there for isocon curves, right? Isocon curves have these three bond features of isocon and cannot cross. It will be a straight line, and as you correctly mentioned, that is due to the fact that we use the same prices for labor and capital, right? Now, when we have isocon curves and isocon cost curves, in order to identify what is the maximum production the firm can reach, what we need to do, isocon curve and the iso cost curve, we need to draw in the same graph. When you draw this in the same graph, then we can see, right? When we use okay, I think here these graphs I have not given. Right. So if you, because that is not easy to draw here. So if we draw this, both this iso cost curve and iso con curve in the same graph, we can see what is the maximum level the firm can produce, right? Subject to the iso cost curve, right? Subject to the iso cost curve, right? So I think you may have the your textbook with you, right? So there, if you refer to page number 230, you refer to page number 230. Yeah, you will see a graph like this, right? I think you can see in the screen, right? Okay, I will share in this, and so here, you can see a graph like this, right? So right, so here you can see in this graph it shows the so there are several isocon curves are there. In addition to that, the iso cost also drawn on the same and iso cost curve in the same graph. Isocon curves and iso cost curve in the same graph, you can see what is the maximum isocon curve the firm can reach subject to the iso cost for the factors. Is that clear? So now in this graph you can see three isocon curves, right? And graph. The highest curve is for what is the equilibrium? It is right. So there are several values indicated: A, B, C, D, E. Right? What is the equilibrium for this producer? What is the equilibrium for this producer?
B.
The equilibrium is B, right? But we can see point A and C also possible. Point A and C also possible. But as you correctly mentioned, equilibrium is B, right? Why it is not A or C? Right? Because we know as we discussed earlier, as we saw in that Excel graph earlier for the iso cost curve, the firm can select the input combination given in A and C also, right? So three possible input combinations are there: A, B, and C. But firm will not select A or C. The firm will select B. Why is that? Because A and C represent points on isocon curve 1, the first one.
Yes.
The lowest one. The lowest one means low output. But with the same expenditure, same outlay, the firm can reach output given in point B. Point B is the point on the second isocon curve. The second isocon curve, right? So it is a point on the second isocon curve, right? So you can see it is given as Q2 in this graph, right? It is given in Q2. The firm can reach Q2 with the same expenditure. Same expenditure they can produce. Reach a larger isocon curve is what? They can produce more. They can produce more, right? So as I saw in that Excel sheet, right? So if you draw this cost curve here, cost curve here, right? So I will draw a line here. Right. So can you see this Excel sheet now, isocon curves?
Yeah, sir.
Right. So if you right, so if you draw a curve somewhere here, right, like this, now we can say you can select this input combination also, and this input combination also, right? But right, so the producer will select this one, right? Why is that? Because using the same expenditure, they can produce this output and this output, but this is 100 units, but this is 200 units. Same expenditure, but this input combination will give the producer larger output, right? Larger output. So that's why it is given in this study text, right? In the study text, it is given, right? This point A, B, and C, right? So this point A and C are points in isocontour 1, Q1, that represent low output, but B represent a point on the second isocon curve. Second isocon curve means large output, right? So then, what is the best output for the firm? The best output is the isocon curve that can be reached, right? The highest possible isocon curve that can be reached with the isocost curve, right? The highest isocon curve that can be reached with the isocost curve of the, right? So that is the meaning of producer equilibrium, right? The producer equilibrium. That is called a producer equilibrium. Right now, so which means when there are several isocon curves, right? So to identify what is the equilibrium for a firm, right? So what we need to do, we have to draw both isocon curves and isocost curve in the same graph. So that's what very clearly given in the study text, right? Since it's not very easy to use it in Excel. So when you refer page number 230, right? So when you refer page number 230, there you can see very clearly when isocon curves and the isocost curve drawn in the same graph, right? So in order to identify what is the maximum production the firm can reach, we have to see what is the highest possible isocon curve that can be reached with the isocost curve of the firm, right? That means to identify the producer equilibrium, right? To identify the producer equilibrium, right? Producer equilibrium. So the firm we have to identify what is the maximum isocon curve that can be reached with the isocost curve of the, right? So what is the meaning of producer equilibrium? The highest possible the highest possible isoconcave that can be reached with the applicable iso cost curve of the firm. You know, this is actually when we use this iso cost and iso curve, which are not used, you know, these terms not used practically, but the point explained in this concept is very practical, right? So what is that? What is the maximum level? You know, when the firm use different combinations of inputs, they can produce different levels of output, right? And what is the maximum level they can produce? That depends on what is the maximum level of inputs they can use, right? What is the maximum level of input? Therefore, the producer equilibrium, right? So we can see it is the highest possible isopod curve that can be reached with the given, right, or applicable iso cost curve of the firm, right? So it is like this, right? Now, so that is what we call producer equilibrium, right? Producer equilibrium. So that you can see clearly in page number page number 230. In page number 230, you can identify this producer equilibrium, right? Producer equilibrium, optimum output level, right? Producer equilibrium. Right now, we know this producer equilibrium depends on the isoconcave curve and isocost curve, mainly isocost curve, right? Now, the isocost curve, we saw from this simple analysis, the isocost curve depends on two main factors, right? So, isocost curve depends on two main factors, right? What are the two main factors? The total amount the firm can spend for the inputs and the prices of inputs. Right? Right? The prices of inputs, and this is the total amount the firm can spend, right? So these are the total expenditure. Oh, right. So this budget we'll use here. So that is right. So what you mentioned is correct. So that is budget. So budget, the total expenditure, and the prices of it. So these are the two main things that will decide, that will decide the equilibrium, the optimum production level of the. Now, the iso cost curve depends on these two factors. What is the budget and what is right? What about the prices of inputs? Suppose while the prices of the inputs remain same, the company's budget increase. They increase the budget, right? Suppose they increase the budget to 1,200. Now, what will happen to this iso cost curve? Right? What will happen to the iso cost curve?
Shift upward.
That will shift upward, right? There will be an outward shift of the iso cost curve. That means while the prices remain same, if the firm decides to spend more, if the firm's budget increase, right? If the firm decides to spend more for the inputs, what will happen? The iso cost curve will shift, right? Iso cost curve will shift. That means now they can purchase either 12 units of capital or 24 units of labor.
Yeah.
Right. So what will happen? Their iso cost curve will shift. Right. There will be an outward shift of the iso cost curve. Right. There will be outward shift of the iso cost curve. Outward shift of the iso cost curve. They can buy more inputs now. Right. They can buy more inputs. They can buy either 12 units of capital or 24 units of labor. Right. Which means there will be outward shift of the inputs, right? Outward shift of the iso cost curve, which shows, right, the firm's ability to spend for the inputs will increase, right? Firm's iso cost curve will shift. If the iso cost curve shift, what will happen to the producer equilibrium? If the iso cost curve shift, right, what will happen? Now the firm may be able to reach larger output,
Yeah.
Right. So earlier the maximum output was 200 units, but now they may be able to produce more. Right. When the isocost curve shift, there will be more isoconcurves here. Larger isoconcurve they may be able to reach.
Yeah.
That means, right. So that is called, right. So from that we can identify what is the direction of increasing output, which is known as expansion path. Expansion path. So in your study text, when you refer page number 232, right, you can see this graph, right?
Yeah.
Right. So now in the screen you can see this graph. So this is called the expansion path, right? So which shows if the firm's ability to spend for the factors, right? If the firm's ability to spend for the factors increase, right? If the firm's ability to spend for the factors increase, what will happen? ISO cost curve will shift. When the ISO cost curve shift, then what will happen? The firm will be able to reach larger output. The firm's ability to produce will increase. That means the producer equilibrium will increase. So that is called expansion path. Expansion path, right? So expansion path. So expansion path. So that concept, right? The expansion path shows the direction, right? Why it is known as the expansion path? So that shows the direction of increasing output, right? So we can call it expansion, right? So we call it expansion path. Expansion path. The expansion path, right? This expansion path illustrates expansion path illustrates the direction, the path, the direction of increasing output when the firm's ability, right, when the firm's ability to spend for the factors, ability to spend for the factors increase, right? Firm's ability to spend. In other words, that is firm's budget, right? Firm's ability to spend, right? The total outlay. Right? Ability to spend for the factors means that is the total outlay. Right? So that is the meaning of expansion path. So expansion path explain the way of increasing output when the firm's ability to spend for the factors increase. Right? So always it will not be a graph like this, right? So always it will not be, it will not increase in the same way. Sometimes it might increase towards the vertical axis. Sometimes the direction may be towards the horizontal axis. That depends on what? That depends on the production technique used by the firm. If the firm use capital intensive production technique, right, their expansion path will be, direction will be towards that capital axis, right? But if the firm use more labor intensive production technique, so when they are increasing output, they will use more and more labor, right? So therefore, this expansion path always, it will not be similar. So it will be depends on the production technique used by the firm, right? So this producer equilibrium and expansion path, so that we can analyze using, right, this isoconcurve. So I will put the page reference here so that you can easily refer. The producer equilibrium is given in page number 230. That more clear graph is there, right? The producer equilibrium, and this expansion path is given in page 232. Right. So in page number 230, producer equilibrium is given, and page number 232, this graph for the expansion path is given. Right. And in addition to that, there is one more important concept, right? Relevant for the relevant when we are analyzing production function, which is known as returns to scale, right? So we call, right, there is another important production function known as returns to scale, returns to scale, right? So that is another important production concept.
So one more thing to clarify.
Yeah.
Now, when we draw this expansion path,
yeah.
So this should always go through through the tangent point of each and every isocont and
exactly,
isopod.
Exactly. That's
so that's perfect. Area, in that point,
yeah.
Basically the profit maximization and the cost minimization is applicable, right? Like MR.
Yeah, actually, to identify the profit maximization, we need to incorporate cost also, because here we have considered only production, right? But the production maximizing point, necessarily it will not be the profit maximizing point. To identify the profit maximizing condition, so in addition to this, here we analyze only one variable, production maximum. But production maximizing point also may not be, right? It is not always the revenue maximizing point. Here only one variable. What is that? Production. But if you want to identify the revenue, what we need to do? This production we need to multiply by price. Right? So that's why here, right? This is the point you mentioned is very important. So here only we analyze only one variable, production, right? And so to identify the revenue, what the concept we discussed earlier, price, also we have to consider, right? So now, because revenue means price into quantity. When you use both these concepts together, we can identify revenue. But profit is still, it is not the revenue maximizing point. That, as you correctly mentioned, we have to consider cost also, right? Then, so when we analyze cost also, we can identify cost minimizing output, but cost minimizing output also may not be the profit maximizing. So because the objective of the firm is not to maximize revenue, or it is not to minimize cost. The objective is to maximize profit. So that's why both revenue and cost should be managed, and in order to manage revenue, both price and production should be managed, right? So the production, right, the point you mentioned is perfectly correct. That means when you draw the expansion path, to identify this, how to draw this arrow, right? So we have to use the tangency point, right? So that means this is the tangency point at this level of outlay. But when the firm increases the output, we have to see what is the point, the Isopod curve tangent to the Isopod curve. Yeah, so that's perfectly correct. So here that you can see very clearly in this page number. Please refer this page number 232. The point you mentioned is given very clearly, right? So that's a very important point. So when you draw this, this expansion path, as you very correctly mentioned, we have to use the tangency point, because we can't just draw this line, right? So it is based on the tangency point, right? So that is perfectly correct. That's important, right? So and this tangency point. So this is what I mentioned. The tangency point may not be always the point. This midpoint, because in this graph you can see. Right, you can see you can see in the expansion path in all the points it's like equal level of labor and capital. But this is not, the case for all the firms. Sometimes this direction, right? This expansion path curve, it might go like this, right? That means larger level of this. In fact, sometimes it may be like this. Right? Yeah, because tangency point may be different, right? So that is what that depends on what is the level of what is the method of production method used by the firm. Whether they are using capital intensive production technique or labor intensive production technique, right? So that is a very important point. So once you identify this, once you analyze this, right? After that, we need to incorporate cost also to this analysis to identify the profit maximizing out, right? So here we consider only the production, and then we'll see when we discuss this production and price revenue. When you analyze revenue, then we have to incorporate cost in order to identify the profit maximizing out. Okay, right. So then another small point is there relating to the production theory, which is known as returns to scale. Returns to scale. Return to scale means when the firm is increasing its input, what is the pattern of changing output, right? Return. What is the return? What is the result? What is the output?
Is it, sir, is it similar to economies of scale?
Actually, economies of scale and return to scale very related concept, right? So that right, that's a very useful point, right? So this is very much relating to the economies of scale, right? Economies of scale, because what is the meaning of economies of scale?
Production the number of production output effects from number of inputs.
Yeah, actually, economies of scale, that is mainly used for when we analyze cost, right? When we analyze cost, we use economies of scale, but that is very much related to this one, right? Okay, and before that, so since you point out that important point also, this return to scale is a short run concept or a long run concept?
Long run.
Long run concept. That's why economies of scale also a long run concept, right? What is the meaning of economies of scale, right? Actually, economies of scale mainly related to cost, right? What is the meaning of economies of scale? Economies of scale, right? So we discussed that in more detail in under the cost of production. Economies of scale means when the firm reach large output level, the firm is getting benefit, right? What is the benefit? The cost per unit can be reduced. When the firm is increasing output continuously, when the firm reach relatively large output, the cost per unit can be reduced. Average cost can be reduced. So that is what we call economies of scale. Economies of scale, right? Right? So economies of scale. That means when the firm reach large output, the cost per unit can be reduced. Average cost can be reduced. That is the benefit the firm can get when they produce large output. There are a number of reasons for that, right? But return to scale very much related to this, right? So related concept. And because return to scale, this is mainly related to production. So here, return to scale has different pattern. Return to scale. When the firm is increasing inputs, right? When the firm is increasing all inputs, right? So we can see what is, right? The return to scale, this concept explain what is the pattern of changing output, right? So this explain the pattern of changing output when the firm change the inputs, when the firm change the inputs, when the firm change the inputs, right? Both labor and capital, both right, labor and capital, right? So and this pattern is not same for all the levels of output, right? What is the pattern of change in the output, right? It is the pattern of change in the output, right? This pattern of changing output is not same at all the levels. Therefore, this return to scale, right? According to the return to scale, there are three main patterns, right? What are the different possible patterns? When the firm increase inputs by certain percentage, what are the different patterns? Sometimes output also change by the same percentage, same level, right? For example, if the firm increase inputs by 100%, output also increase by 100%. But is this the condition at all the output levels?
No.
No, right? So there can be different patterns. What are the different patterns? Sometimes when the firm increase inputs, output increase by higher percentage. Sometimes output increase by lower percentage than the change in inputs. Therefore, there are three different patterns of change in the output, right? There are three different patterns of change in the output, and therefore there are three levels of returns to scale. These are known as constant return, increasing return, and decreasing return. Right. So there are three different patterns of change in the output, and these are called, right. So these are called, right. Three different level patterns are there. Three different patterns are there. We call constant returns to scale, right. Constant returns to scale, constant return to scale, right, increasing return to scale, and decreasing return to scale, right. So there are three patterns, right, three types of return to scales are there: constant return to scale, increasing return to scale, right, increasing return to scale, and decreasing return to right. Okay, what is the meaning of constant return to scale? Constant return to scale. Constant return to scale means the proportionate increase in input and the proportionate increase in output will be same, right? The meaning is so we can use that the percentage change. For the change we do use that delta sign, right? The percentage change in inputs, the percentage change in inputs and percentage change in output equal, right? Percentage change in output will be equal. So that is the meaning of constant return, right? The constant return means the percentage change in inputs and percentage change in output equal, right? Output equal. So that is the meaning of constant return, right? Then what is the meaning of this uh, increase in return and decrease in return? What is the meaning of increase in return? Increase in return means what? Which one is greater? Percentage change in which one is greater? Output is great, right?
Yeah.
And the decrease in return to scale means the percentage change in inputs is greater. That means output is low, right?
Yeah.
Output is low, right? So this is the meaning of constant increasing and decreasing. The constant return to scale means when inputs change by certain percentage, output also change by the same percentage. But right, for example, if the firm double inputs, output also double. But increase in return means when the firm increase input by certain percentage, output increase by larger percentage, right? Output increase by larger percentage. That is what we call increasing returns to scale. And decrease in return to scale means, right, when inputs increase by certain percentage, usually, right, output increase by smaller percentage, right? And this can actually we can relate this to the production function also. Usually in in which stage we can see the increase in return to scale?
Yeah.
At the initial level or at very large level, right? Increasing returns. Usually we can identify in which stage. Usually, right? So increase in returns we can identify in which stage of the production?
Increasing returns.
Usually increase in returns we can identify in the initial stage, right?
Yeah.
Initial stage of the production, we can identify the increase in returns, right? Initial stage of production. Initial stage, right?
Yeah.
Initial stage of production, we can identify increasing returns, right? Increase in return to scale, right? Gradually what will happen? Gradually there will be, right? Gradually there will be which level? So from increase in return to it will move towards what?
It will diminish.
Constant return.
Constant.
Right. After that, it will start to diminish. Right. Initially increasing returns, then so gradually there will be a constant return, right? But there will be diminishing return or decreasing returns when the output reach to very large level of output. Right. So that is the normal pattern. So that even so here when you see the production function, what happened? Initially it increased at a very high rate. Then it increases at a decreasing
Increasing rate.
right? That means here there are maybe constant return. When input increase, output also increase by same level, gradual, and then start to diminish. Increasing return, constant return, diminishing return, right? So this is what will happen. This is what will happen. So initially, at initial stage of production, there will be increasing return, right? So gradually, this will move to constant return, and finally, then finally diminishing return. So that is what will happen, right? So gradually there will be constant return, right? Initial level of production, there will be constant, increasing return, right? At initial level of production, there will be increasing return, right? Increasing return. So gradually, right? When production increase gradually, right? Gradually there will be constant return. So, constant return to scale, right? And when the firm reach very large output, there will be right at very large output levels. That means beyond the firm's optimum capacity. At very large output levels, the firm will experience decreasing return to scale. So usually this is the pattern, right? Usually this is the pattern, right? Right. So that is called returns to scale. Return to scale also, you can see in page number 232, one graphical illustration is given for these three types of return to scale: constant, increasing, and decreasing. Three curves are given in page number 232, right? So, but here the important thing is the meaning of this, right? So we can understand the meaning clearly. The constant return to scale means inputs and outputs change proportionately at the same level, right? But increasing return means output increase by larger percentage, and decreasing return means output increase by a smaller percentage, right? So these are the main production concepts, right? So under the production theory, right? So those are the main points that we should discuss, right? So we discuss what are the main production, short-run production function, total production, average production, and marginal production. Then the long-run production function, the three stages of production, law of diminishing returns, Isopod Curve, and the law of returns to scale, right? And this law of return to scale will relate when we discuss the cost of production. Also, you will see, right? As you asked earlier, as you mentioned earlier, so we relate this return to scale when we discuss cost of production also, because economies of scale and return to scale very much related, right? So economies of scale is related to which type of return to scale? When there are, right? So firm will get the benefits of economies of scale under which pattern, which level? Constant, increasing, or decreasing?
Increasing.
Increasing
Sorry,
return.
decreasing.
Actually, increasing return to scale. Yeah, because when there are increasing return to scale, what will happen? Yeah, when inputs increase, output increase by large percentage. That means what happened to the cost per unit? The cost per unit decrease, right?
Increase.
So economies of scale directly related to this increasing return to scale, right? Increasing return to scale. So this will lead to, right? So this lead to economies of scale, right? This lead to economies of scale, right? Economies of scale. That's why these two concepts are very much related. Increasing return to scale leads to economies of scale. But gradually, what will happen? When inputs increase, output increase only by a smaller percentage. That means what will happen to the cost per unit? Cost per unit will start to increase after a certain level. That is called diseconomies of scale, right? That is called diseconomies of scale, right? That's why this economies and diseconomies of scales very much related to the return to scale, right? Return to scale. So that's why, so when we move to the cost of production, I will, relate these 2 points, right? Because they are under the economies of scale, this return to scale concept is very much related, right? So the key points, so I have, explained here, and in that note I have given you, there are also these key points I have indicated, right? Because in this note, you can see under the return to scale, so 3 patterns are there. The 3 pattern, increasing, decreasing, and constant, right? So here it is given, right? So here you can see there are three types of return to scale, constant, increasing, and decreasing, right? And the point I mentioned is given here. If output increase in a smaller proportion, right here in the last paragraph, it is generally believed that at very small scale of operation, the firm can enjoy increase in return to scale.
Return. Yeah.
Yeah. When the level of output rises, increase in return to scale give way to constant return, and eventually firm has to experience decrease in return, right? So at the beginning there are increasing return, gradually there will be constant return, and finally there will be decreasing returns, right? So so these are the key production concepts, right? So you need to be familiar, right?
So one more thing to clarify.
Yeah.
Uh, can you go to the Excel sheet, please?
Oh yeah. Right.
So here now
Yeah.
you have mentioned the change, the percentage change in input and output,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For 3 levels of the returns to scale. Now,
Yes.
since we have these the changes in output and input, we
Yes.
can derive this coefficient of output elasticity, right? And
Yes. Yes.
derive
Yes.
some figures.
That is correct. That's correct. So that's correct. So that's why at the beginning, so that elasticity concept also we can relate here. That means when the inputs increase, right? In fact, the point you mentioned is very important. Now as I mentioned, now we discuss production and price separately.
Yeah.
Now when you combine these two, what we get? We get revenue, right? So
Yeah.
revenue we can directly relate to elasticity. Right?
Exactly.
Revenue we can directly relate to elasticity, because here you may remember in the price theory. So when we talk about elasticity, right? After we discuss this, when we discuss about price elasticity, we directly related elasticity to revenue here, right? So that we can see, right? We can see when we get one demand curve, right? So here we discuss what is the relationship between revenue and the elasticity. When the demand is elastic, what is the pattern? And when the demand is inelastic, what is the pattern? So here we relate to the total revenue. So when you combine this revenue and production and price, we can relate that to elasticity concept also. Yeah. That's very very important. Right. In fact, so when we move to when we combine these two, that also I will show you. When we get a one particular demand curve, we can see what is the pattern of changing the revenue at different levels of demand curve, so that we can relate the demand curve to elasticity and revenue simultaneously.
Yeah.
Right.
And so one thing we miss about this substitution impact on to derive the marginal returns of technical substitution.
Okay. Yeah. So in fact, that I didn't discuss here. Marginal marginal rate of technical substitution. That's why, in fact, why this curve, that concept you mentioned is relating to this feature, right? Why the isocon curve is convex to the origin. Isocon curve is convex to the origin. Why is that? It's not a straight line. What is the reason? When right, in fact, I didn't explain it in detail, right? But here you can see when we increase labor, the pattern of the level of capital, I didn't decrease at proportionately at the same level. right? So this is the point relating to the concept you mentioned, the marginal rate of technical substitution, right? So okay, if I put that concept also here, right? That is called, usually we call it MRTS, marginal rate of technical substitution, right? So MRTS, right? Right? Marginal rate of technical substitution. Marginal rate of technical substitution, which is commonly known as MRTS, right? We also call MRTS labor for capital, right? So MRTS, marginal rate of technical substitution, right?
So this is applicable. So this is applicable only for imperfect substitution, right?
Yes,
like
yes.
Perfect and complementary, we cannot apply it.
Yeah. So if the inputs are perfect substitutes, this is not applicable. Then what will happen? This Isopod curve also will be a straight line.
Straight, yeah.
Isopod curves will be a straight line. So if right, as you mentioned, if the inputs are perfect substitutes, Isopod curves will be straight lines, right? But why Isopod curves are convex to the origin? That is due to this particular concept, marginal rate of technical substitution. That means when you increase labor, the level of capital you can decrease is not equal, right? Because that is the meaning of marginal rate of technical substitution, right? The level of the level of one input which can be reduced when the other input increase. That is called marginal rate of technical substitution. The marginal rate of technical substitution means, right? So when we, for example, when we use this one Isopod curve, when we increase labor from 1 to 2, the level of capital that can be reduced, right? So here you can see when we increase labor from 1 to 2, the capital will be reduced from 6 to 4, right? 2 units of capital reduced. But when you increase labor from 2 to 3, right, the capital can be reduced only from 4 to 3. Right. So here, right, I applied that concept, but I didn't discuss in detail. Right. So that is why we get a curve like this. Right. That means what is the meaning of marginal rate of technical substitution? The level of one input which can be reduced when the other input increase by 1 unit, that will gradually decrease. That is the meaning of marginal rate of technical substitution. Marginal rate of technical substitution means what? The level of one input which can be reduced. Which can be reduced when the other input increase by 1 unit, right? When the other input increase by 1 unit is called marginal rate of technical substitution, right? And marginal rate of technical substitution gradually diminish, right? MRTS gradually diminish. Right, gradually diminishes. Right, so that is because when we increase one input, the other input can be decreased only up to a certain level. Because now see here, when you increase labor up to a certain point, capital can be increased. Now even if you increase labor to 7, 8, 9, 10, but still that minimum level of capital is required. After a certain level, the level we can reduce from capital will be very, very low. So we can't reduce further. That's why that we can identify from.
Sorry for disturbing. So basically, to arrive these optimal combination of inputs, like reducing so increasing labor and reducing capital, like not only because of cost but the productivity of labor and
exactly.
Needs to be
so not only cost, even though theoretically we put even combinations like this type of combinations may not be practical because only labor, right? So this is one possible combination which can be purchase subject to the cost, subject to the total outlay. But this is not practical.
Exactly.
And this is not practical because there should be minimum level of capital, there should be minimum level of labor, right? So, right, perfectly correct. This is the point you mentioned. So that's the reason for this MRDS to diminish the marginal rate of technical substitution.
Yeah.
That's why this curve is convex to the origin. It is not only negatively slow because we can see even Isopod curve is negatively slow, but right, it is not usually it's not convex to the origin because prices may remain constant for a given period, right? But we can substitute factors only up to a certain level. So that's why, right, this is due to this is convex to the origin due to the nature of marginal rate of technical substitution, right? So this is due to marginal rate of technical substitution.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So these are the key points actually, right? And those are very important, and that is the important point of referring, this recommended textbook and the additional notes. That's very important because, as I mentioned you in the first session, we have a big challenge because so many, the syllabus is too broad to cover in maybe 9 or 10 session. So that's why it's very here. In this material also, the key point I have mentioned, but so there are a number of other related concepts which are very much related to this, right? So that's why it's very important to read this textbook. So that's why I even mention what are the pages you need to refer relating to these key concepts. That will help you to get more information, more knowledge about the other related concepts, right? So that's great. So here we have discussed the key concepts relating to the production. Then so we can move to the cost of production. Maybe we can take a short break, and after the break, so we'll discuss about the cost of production.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. So let's take a break, and then we'll discuss about cost of production.
Okay.
සර් බ්‍රේක් දීලා ගියා කීයටද පටන් ගන්නවා කිව්වේ? කවුරු හරි ඉන්නවද?
මං ඉන්නවා දැන්
සර් ඉන්නවා සර් කීයටද මේක
දැන් මං හිතන්නේ දැන් කට්ටිය එවිලා දෙන්නේ දැන් පටන් ගන්න.
දැන් එඩිට් ඉනිය දැන් එයි එන්න. හරි හරි ඕකේ.
ඔක්කොම එවිලා දැන්නේ.
අයක් ඉන්නවා වගේ පේනවා සර් තව එන්න ඉන්නවා.
Mama.
Right. Okay. So shall we start again?
Yeah, I just in sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I think everyone is there, right? Okay. Then so we can discuss then the other major category, cost of production, right? Cost of production, because so far we discussed price theory and production theory. Then the other important part is the cost of production, right? So when we analyze the cost of production, so there are right the key points we need to discuss. We know economic cost is different to the accounting cost. So we need to know the difference between accounting cost and economic cost, right? Accounting cost and economic cost. Then right, and so similar to the production theory, when we talk about cost also, we need to talk about short run and long run cost, right? So then so when we analyze short run cost, right? Short run cost. So we know in short run we need to analyze because short run means we know the meaning there are fixed factors. Therefore, in the short run we need to talk about fixed cost and variable cost. But in when we analyze the long run cost, right, and in addition to that, so when we analyze cost, we need to discuss about several cost concepts. That is total cost, average cost and marginal cost, right? Total cost, average cost and marginal cost, right? And so these concepts and not only the short run, and we need to analyze the long run. Right. So these are the main factors we have to discuss under the cost of production. Right. Under the cost of production, the main points we need to discuss. Right. So we have to analyze these points. Right. First of all, what is the difference between accounting cost and economic cost? Right. Because we know in accounts we talk about the accounting cost and economic cost. There is a difference. Right. What is the main difference between economic cost and accounting cost?
Accounting cost has actual costs. In economic
Cost.
has actual cost plus the opportunity cost.
Exactly. Right. So that is the main difference. In accounts, we talk about only the actual cost. In other words, we call it explicit cost. Right. So in accounting cost include only explicit cost.
Explicit cost.
Right. Yeah. Accounting cost include only the explicit cost. Right. Explicit. Right. Explicit cost means, as you correctly mentioned, these are the actual cost. Right. These are the actual cost. We can say the cost incurred to buy or hire factors of production. That means there should be outflow of cash or other resources, right, to settle these costs. Right. That means explicit cost are the cost incurred to buy or hire. Right. So we can say the cost incurred, right, incurred to buy or even higher, right, buy or higher factors of production, right, factors of production, right, because we know the cost incurred by any organization, they have they incur cost to buy or hire these factors of production when they are producing a product, right. So this actual cost we call explicit cost, right. So accounting cost include only this explicit cost, but economic cost include not only the explicit cost, but it include implicit cost, right. So the economic cost include both explicit and implicit cost, right. Economic cost include both explicit and implicit cost. Right. So implicit cost, right, as you correctly mentioned, that is the opportunity cost. Right. Implicit cost is right, mainly that is opportunity cost, which means if a company already has some assets, if they are using their own assets for their production process, in accounts there will not be any adjustment for that. Right. For example, when a particular company is having a building, right, so when they are using their own building to produce the products, right, for their office work, so when they are using their own building, in addition to the construction cost, they don't consider any cost to calculate the profit for a given period, because there is no additional cost, right. They don't pay anything, but there is opportunity cost, right. What is the opportunity cost? Because if they are using their own building for their product, as the office, right, then what will happen? There is no actual cost, but there is opportunity cost. If they are not using their own building for this business, they can earn the rent income from that building. But when they are using their own building for right, as the office for their office for their product, right, for their office, right, then what will happen? They lose the opportunity. Yeah, they forgo some benefits, some income they can earn. That is what we call implicit cost, right. So implicit cost, that is the opportunity cost of using their own resources, right. Opportunity cost of using the own resources, using the own resources of a firm, right. So that is the meaning of economic cost. Therefore, so when we calculate economic profit, so we need to consider both these factors, right. So opportunity cost of, right. So here I mainly mentioned about the implicit cost. So implicit cost is the opportunity cost of using own resources of a firm. Therefore, in economics, we have to consider both explicit and implicit cost, right? And so when we calculate accounting profit, we consider only, right? We consider only explicit cost, right? So if you want to calculate the accounting profit, so we know how do you calculate the accounting profit. So you deduct only explicit cost from the total revenue, right? From the total revenue,
Total cost.
we deduct explicit cost, right? Only explicit cost, right? In order to calculate accounting profit, right? But if you want to calculate economic profit, right? So in addition to the explicit cost, you need to deduct implicit cost also, right? Which means when you are going to calculate economic profit, if you want to calculate economic profit, so then what we need to do from the accounting profit, right? From accounting profit, implicit cost, right? Implicit cost should be deducted from accounting profit, right? So this is one main factor we need to consider when we analyze the cost of production, right? Cost of production in economics, right? So when we analyze cost of production in economics, we need to consider the fact that in economics, when we analyze cost, we assume both the explicit cost and implicit cost are considered, right? So that's why when we calculate economic profit, so we need to consider both the implicit cost and explicit cost, right? So then we can see what are the main short run cost concepts, right? So short run cost we can analyze. Short run cost we have to analyze in the short run. So as I mentioned, right, as you all know very well, in the short run, we need to analyze two main types of cost, that is fixed cost and variable cost, right? So when we analyze short run total cost curves, right? If we analyze, so short run also, we can, when we analyze short run cost, we have to analyze two categories: short run total cost curves and short run per unit cost curves, right?
Yeah.
So we can say short run total cost curves and short run per unit cost curves, right? When we analyze short run total cost curves, total cost curves, so total cost, there are several short run total cost curves, right? So what are the main total cost curves? We have total fixed cost, total variable cost, right? Total fixed cost, because the total cost in the short run, we know it's a combination of two main factors: total cost of the firm equal total fixed cost plus total variable cost, right? So total cost of the firm is this, right? So which means there are two main components: total fixed cost, total variable cost, and when you add these two, we get the total cost, right? And this will change, right? Certain cost will change with the quantity, certain cost will not change with the quantity, right? So if we need to analyze the behavior of these main short run total cost curves, right? So we know when the output change, right? When the output change, this total cost will change, right? So total cost will change when the output change, right? But we know total fixed cost is constant, right? For example, it is there even if the output is zero. Even if the output is zero, the fixed cost is there. Because what is the meaning of the fixed cost?
The
Right?
total obligation.
Yeah, you know the meaning of the fixed cost. Yeah, so you know the meaning of fixed cost. That is the cost that will, right? Fixed cost means that is the cost that will
Applicable for the fixed inputs.
Yeah, so that is the cost incurred for the fixed inputs. In other words, we can say Therefore, since it is incurred for the fixed inputs, this will not change.
Yeah.
Right? This will not change when the output change. Therefore, the fixed cost means the cost remain constant. Right? The cost remain constant, unchanged. Right? Constant. Right? Cost remain constant even if the output level, right? Even if the output level change, even if the level of output change, right? Level of output change, right? So it is the cost remain unchanged whatever the level of output. But variable cost, as the term implies, the cost will directly change with the output is called variable cost, right? The cost directly change with the output. Cost directly change with the output, right? With the output is called variable cost, right? Cost directly change with the output, right? It varies with the output, but here the fixed cost that doesn't vary even if the output level changes, right? So which means if we if we want to analyze the behavior of these different cost concepts, you can see when the output change, even if the output is zero, the fixed cost is there. But when output change, the fixed cost will not change, right? So it will remain it will remain constant even if the level of activity change, right? But what will happen to the variable cost? The variable cost will change, right? If the output level is zero, what will be the variable cost?
Zero.
Variable cost is zero. And when output level change, the variable cost will change. And that means that will continuously increase, right? Usually the variable cost will increase, right? So there is a normal pattern of change in the variable cost, right? So variable cost curve practically, we know when the output increase, it will increase, but it will not increase at the same rate, right? That means if you draw the total variable cost curve of a firm, so what do you think? It will be a straight line or non-linear?
Non-linear.
It is non-linear because it will not increase at the same rate, right? When the output increase, it will increase at a decreasing rate at the beginning, right? At the beginning, it will increase at a decreasing rate up to a certain level, right? After that, it will start to increase again. So that is the normal pattern, right? And so we'll see the reason for that, right? Initially, when the firm is increasing output, right, variable cost will start to increase, but it will gradually increase at a decreasing rate. Why is that? What is the reason? Because company can get the benefit at the initial stage of the production, right? When they are increasing the inputs, right? When they are increasing the output, what will happen? Certain cost they can reduce, right? They can reduce per unit. Per unit cost can be reduced, and due to that, the variable cost curve will continuously increase, right? Variable cost will never decrease, right? Cost will never decrease, but it will increase at a decreasing rate, right? And when when we see the shape of this total variable cost curve, we can identify this very clearly. And total cost is the aggregate of this fixed cost and variable cost, right? It is the aggregate of fixed cost and variable cost, right? So right, and so it will take this shape, right? So these are the values. These are the values for the total cost. And we draw a graph. Yeah. So when we draw a graph, we will get a graph like this, right? So we will get a graph like this, right? So this is what I mentioned earlier. Usually total variable cost, right? Usually total variable cost will not be a straight line, right? Total variable cost will not be a straight line. It will increase, but initially it will increase at a decreasing rate. Then it start to increase, right? Once the company exceed its optimum capacity, then again it will start to increase, right? Initially, it will start to increase at a decreasing rate, right? These are the short run total cost curves, right? These are the short run total cost curves. These are the short-run total cost curves, right? Short-run total cost curves. So we can see the short-run total cost curves will take this shape, right? Normally this is the pattern, right? But the level of these the turning points may not be equally applicable for all the firms, but the normal pattern is it will start it will at the beginning it will increase at a decreasing rate up to a certain level. After the company exceed their optimum level, then it start to increase at a very high rate, right? This is the normal pattern, right? Total fixed cost, total variable cost, and the total cost, right? Since the difference between total cost and total variable cost is the fixed cost, right? The fixed cost. So these two curves usually will be parallel, right? These are two parallel curves, right? Initially, right? So this is because when the firm is increasing output at the beginning, we know they can when they increase inputs. I think under the production theory also we discussed, due to the benefits the company can get from the division of labor. So right, so what will happen? The cost per unit will start to decrease. The cost per unit will start to decrease, right, at the beginning up to a certain level, right? But after that, it will start to increase again, right? So these are called the short run total cost. These are the short run total cost. But these short run total costs are very important to analyze the profitability of a firm. But in order to analyze the profitability, it is more important to more important to analyze short run per unit cost curves, right? Short run per unit cost curves, right? So what are the short run per unit cost curves, right? Based on this information, right? Based on these values, we can identify number of short run per unit cost, right? So what are the short run per unit cost curves we can identify? We can derive from these total curves.
Average fixed cost.
Average fixed cost. Average fixed cost.
Average variable cost.
Average variable cost.
Average cost.
Average cost and
marginal cost.
Marginal cost, right? And as you very correctly mentioned, unlike production, here we can analyze average cost values, right? Because in production we had only one average production, but here we can analyze average fixed cost, average variable cost, average cost, right? So these number of average cost concepts we can analyze here, right? And so average fixed cost means what?
TFC divided by quantity.
TFC divided by quantity. The meaning is, we know that is the fixed cost per unit, right? Fixed cost per unit. We know at zero there is no any per unit cost, right? There is no any per unit cost at zero output. Therefore, we have to consider only from quantity one, right? So as you very correctly mentioned, it is total fixed cost divided by quantity, right? Usually, what will happen to the average fixed cost? Right, when the output increase, what will happen to the average fixed cost? That will
it should decrease.
It will decrease continuously, right? The cost curve that will continuously decrease is average fixed cost, because when the output increase, the average fixed cost will continuously decrease, right? But normally, when you analyze the other average cost curves, what will be the pattern? Those cost curves, right? What do you think? Those costs also will continuously decrease? So?
No, at some point it will decrease, and then again it increase.
Exactly. Other average cost curves, what will happen? Other average cost curve will decrease only up to a certain point. After that, it will start to increase, right? So how do you what is the meaning of average variable cost? How do you calculate average variable cost?
TVC divided by quantity.
TVC divided by quantity. That is the total variable cost divided by quantity. The meaning is variable cost per unit. Variable cost per unit. And so when you calculate that, you can see, right, it will decrease up to a certain point, then it will start to increase. Then it will start to increase. And so, right, on the only cost that will continuously decrease is only average fixed cost, AFC, right? Average variable cost will start to increase after certain level of output. And how do you calculate average cost?
So since the average cost curve as well as the total cost curves are parallel, either you can use TC divided by Q or AFC divided by AFC plus ABC.
Exactly. So you can either calculate it is total cost divided by quantity, or right AFC divided by ABC, right? So it will be the total of AFC and ABC, or total cost divided by quantity, right? So that's perfectly correct. Now if you get the total of this, that is 50. Total of this, that is 35, right? So it is the cost, cost, average cost per unit, that is total cost divided by quantity, or it is right. So that is important. We can see AFC means, right, AFC means it is TFC divided by quantity, right, total fixed cost per unit. Then AVC, average variable cost, means, right, average variable cost means TVC divided by quantity, right, TVC divided by quantity, right. But AC you can calculate in two ways, right. As you mentioned, it is we can calculate either total cost divided by quantity, or we can also calculate this AFC plus AVC, right. Both methods are correct, right. And then how do you calculate marginal cost? Marginal cost means what?
Either change in total cost divided by change in output, or change in TVC divided by change in output.
Exactly, because marginal cost means cost per additional unit, right? Marginal means always the cost, marginal concept we discussed earlier also, marginal production, that is the production per additional unit of input. But here the cost per additional unit of output, right? So what is the cost of producing one additional unit, right? That is the meaning, and it is the change. But as you correctly mentioned, we can calculate this in two ways, because total cost change purely due to the change in what? Variable cost, right? Because even if the output change, fixed cost remains same. Therefore, total cost change purely due to the change in total variable cost, right? Therefore, the marginal cost we can calculate, it is change. Change, we know it is delta. Change in total cost divided by change in output, change in content, right? Change in content. That is the meaning of right. But as you mentioned, as you very correctly mentioned, so this we can also use change in total variable cost also, right? So instead of total cost, even we can consider what is the change in total variable cost. So that method also we can use, because the total cost change totally due to the change in variable cost, right? So that is why marginal cost we can calculate this way also, right? So average cost and marginal cost, there are two ways to calculate, right? So it is change since the total cost, since the total cost change since output changed by 1 unit, we can simply use the change in the cost, right? Because output always change by 1 unit, so we need to divide by 1, right? So when you calculate that, we can see the pattern of change in marginal cost also. What is the pattern of change in marginal cost? Marginal cost also decrease only up to certain level. And after that it start to increase, right? So we can see average variable cost, average cost, and marginal cost, all three curves decrease at the beginning but start to increase after certain level of output, right? After certain level of output, they start to increase, right? So if you draw a graph using this information, we can
line chart.
Yeah. Yeah, so we will get a set of curves like this, right? So we will get a right set of curves like this. So these are the short run per unit cost curves, right? So these are the short run per unit cost curves. We call per unit cost curves, right? Why all these curves are per unit cost,
Per unit.
right? Per unit cost, right? Because this is AFC means what? AFC means fixed cost per unit. ABC means variable cost per unit. Average cost means total cost per unit. And marginal cost, change in total cost per unit, change in output. That's why these are called per unit cost curves, right? And when you right, if you carefully observe these per unit cost curves, one very important relationship you can identify, right? Under the production theory, you may remember we discussed some important relationship between production curves. Here, between cost curves also we can identify very important relationship, right? Mainly between two curves we can identify very important relationship, right? So what is that? Between which cost curve? Sorry?
Intercept.
Between which curves? Yeah, so which curves? Between which curves? Between
AFC,
average cost and marginal cost,
marginal cost,
right?
yeah.
Between average cost and marginal cost, we can identify very important relationship, right? One very important relationship we can identify between marginal cost and average cost. What is that? Right? Actually, if we use little bit more data, so it will be more clear, right? But we can identify one very important, right? One very important relationship between these cost curves. Right. So in this note also I have given these are the total cost curves and these are the per unit cost curves, right? So when you analyze these per unit cost curves, usually, right, you will get a set of graphs, curves like this, right? You will get a graph with set of curves like this. Here, one very important relationship we can identify between two cost curves, that is marginal cost and average cost. This relationship we have to use in all the market structures to identify the profit maximizing point, right? What is that relationship? What is the relationship between, right? Very important relationship between marginal cost and average cost.
MC intersect with the average total cost when it's at the minimum.
Exactly. So that is the relationship. That is the relationship, right? So you can see the marginal cost curve crosses the average cost when average cost is minimum, right? So actually, this relationship is applicable not only between marginal cost and average cost. We can see marginal cost and average variable cost to minimum, right? Actually, this, but the more important thing is between AC and MC, so right? So that is the relationship, right? You is actually the opposite relationship we observed between production curves, right? Between production curves, you may remember, right? So between average production and marginal production, right? What is the relationship we observe? Marginal production curve crosses average production when the average production is maximum. Here you can see the marginal cost curve crosses average cost curve when average cost is minimum, right? So that is the relationship, right? So here we can see right? So marginal cost curve crosses average cost curve when average cost is, right? When average cost is minimum, right? When average cost is minimum, right? When the average cost is minimum. So when marginal cost curve crosses average cost, it will be the minimum point of average cost, right? So we can explain this in a number of other ways. right? You can see when marginal average cost is falling. When average cost is falling, marginal cost is less than that, right? When average cost is falling, marginal cost is less than average cost. But as soon as average cost start to increase, the marginal cost is more than average cost, right?
Yeah.
So we can explain that way also, right? When average cost is falling, we can say when average cost is falling, when average cost is falling, the marginal cost is less than, in this case, marginal cost is less than average cost, right? Marginal cost is less than average cost. Here, when average cost is falling, marginal cost is less than average cost, right? But when average average cost is rising, as soon as average cost start to increase, right? Average cost is rising, marginal cost is more than the average cost.
Yeah.
Average cost, right? So these are the other ways we can analyze. We can analyze these per unit cost curves, right? This relationship is very, very important, right? So whenever you draw AC and MC curves, right? Whenever you draw AC and MC curve for a particular firm, you need to, right, apply this relationship, right? So you will see, right? Actually, as I mentioned earlier, so far we analyze these key factors separately, right? So we analyze key factors. Production, price we analyze separately. Production we analyze separately. Cost we analyze separately. But in order to identify profit maximizing point, what we need to do? We need to consider everything together, right? Simultaneously, we have to consider cost and revenue, right? We need to combine these two concepts. For that, we, in order to analyze profit maximizing point, this relationship is very, very important, right? So when whenever we incorporate cost curves to the profitability analysis, right? Actually, the profitability analysis we using what? Per unit cost curves. That's why I mentioned earlier, is per unit cost curves are very important in the analysis of profitability. When we analyze in profitability, is per unit cost curves are very important, right? Per unit cost curves are very important when we analyze profitability. So therefore, you need to remember this relationship, right? So whenever we analyze we analyze cost, we need to remember this. Marginal cost curve will cross the average cost curve at the minimum point of the average cost, right? So this is exactly opposite of the production, right? So production curve, marginal cost curve crosses the maximum point of the average production, right? When the average production is maximum, average cost is minimum. So that's fairly logical. Average production per unit of input is maximum means what? The cost per unit of input is minimum, right? So that's why these two concepts are related, very much related, right? So these are the main short run cost, right? Main short run cost functions are this: short run total cost and short run per unit cost. Short run total cost, we mainly analyze total fixed cost, total variable cost, and total cost. But per unit cost curves, right? So there are 4 per unit cost curves, right? Right, as we discussed earlier, average fixed cost continuously decrease, but all the other average, per unit cost curves decrease at the beginning and start to increase, right? So usually these other, other than total fixed cost, average fixed cost curve, other curves we call, they have U shape. Here, U shape, right? That is U letter, right? U shape means U letter. Right, so that means initially decrease, after that increase, right? Therefore, this average cost, average variable cost, and average marginal cost, all these curves decrease at the beginning and after that start to increase, right? So these are the main short run curves, right? So main short run cost concepts, right? Under the main short run cost concepts, we need to know the main relationships between these short run total cost curves and short run per unit cost curves, right? So they are under the short run cost curves, we discuss two main categories: short run total cost and short run per unit cost. Right?
So
And
one
then when we
clarification, sir.
analyze, yeah.
Now, is there possibility to due to some operation thing, this ATC curve shift either which way upward or downward?
Sorry.
The ATC curve.
Yes.
Can be shift in the short run either upward or downward.
Yeah. So definitely, okay. That means definitely this per unit cost curve completely based on what, right? So that's an important point. All these per unit cost curves completely based on what? Completely based on what? Completely based on these total curves.
Yeah.
Right. Completely based on total curve. That means if the company's total cost increase, what will happen? This average, this per unit cost curve will shift upward, right? Yeah. If the company's total variable cost increase, what will happen? If the variable cost increase, what will happen? Average variable cost curve will shift upward, right? And if the total, that means these per unit cost curve, as we saw here, all these per unit cost curve completely based on what? Completely based on these total cost curves. Right? That means this total, variable cost and total fixed cost. If the company's total fixed cost increase, what will happen? Average fixed cost curve will shift upward. Right? So right. So that's a very important point. And actually, this factor we discuss later. That means when we move to the profitability. So right. So we discuss this because when average cost and marginal cost change, right? We discuss here under one particular market structure. So here when we discuss this cost and production function separately, now as I mentioned earlier, in order to analyze profitability, we are going to combine these. But when you analyze profitability, we can't identify one point that will maximize profitability for all the firms, right? Why? The different firms operate under different market conditions. That's why when we analyze profit maximization, we need to analyze this under different market structures. In economics, four main market structures are discussed. Right? What are the four main market structures?
Monopoly.
Oligopoly.
Oligopoly.
Perfect competition.
Perfect competition and monopolistic competition. So four main market structures, right? Perfect competition, monopoly, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, right? There are, the point you mentioned. So that's why as soon as you mentioned that came to my mind in the one market, even if in all the markets, the point you mentioned is very valid because the variable cost can change, the fixed cost can change. Then what will happen? What will happen is average cost curves and the marginal cost curve will shift, right? There will be a shift upward or, if the cost decrease, there will be downward shift. But, definitely when these cost curves change, what will happen? Profitability will change. The profit maximizing output will change. But in one particular market, even if these cost curves shift within a certain range, they will not change the output, right? So that we will discuss in detail later, which is known as oligopoly market. In oligopoly, there is a concept called price rigidity, right? So so for that, this particular point we can apply, right? So oligopoly, like when there are only few firms, normally they compete in terms of price or other measures. In oligopoly market, so maybe those who have not studied economics, nothing to worry. But so the point you mentioned is applicable to that market structure. That's why I mentioned here. So normally in oligopoly market, oligopoly means what? How mainly this market structure based on the number of firms in the industry, mainly based on the number of firms in the industry, right? So oligopoly means, so what about the nature? So many firms or few firms?
Few firms.
Right? Only few firms. When there are only few firms, it's like these banks, like these. So what are the other? Maybe cement, maybe right, big electronic appliances, right? So in this market, usually these firms compete in terms of price or other measures.
Other measures.
Other measures. They don't use price to compete, right, with other firms, because since there are only few firms, if one firm decrease the price, that will directly affect to the others. They will the other firm also has to decrease the price. Then what will happen? Another firm will start to decrease the price. There will be a price war. Ultimately, everyone is going to lose. Therefore, all the firms, they right normally when there is a oligopoly market, firms don't compete in terms of price, right? That is called price rigidity. So for that, this particular cost concept is applicable, right? So we'll discuss that in detail later, right? The point of
excuse me, sir. When you talk about market structures, where duopoly stands?
Duopoly is one special condition under oligopoly, right? That is, because actually duopoly
like
is
two
the
competitors.
Yes.
Two competitors.
Only two firms, because duopoly is a very special case in oligopoly, right? That's why when we move to market structures, we'll discuss, because all the other market structures, perfect competition, monopolistic competition, very specific general model is there. But for oligopoly, it is not possible to develop one model. That's why there are number of models. The point you mentioned is one condition, that is called duopoly. Right? So one economist called Kuhnert, so he explained that duopoly. And there is another model called king demand curve model. There is another model called price leadership. Another model called cartel. Like this, there are different models to explain oligopoly. Oligopoly, there is no one model, because that is the most complicated market. Because when few funds means few means two also few, 10-15 means also few, right? That's why oligopoly means the most complicated, complex market structure, right? So in economic books you will see, so it is given it is not possible to develop all embracing model. That means all the condition in oligopoly cannot be analyzed using one general model. There is no one model. There are different models. Different economists have developed different models for oligopoly, because that is a very complex market structure. Few firms, that few is not a very specific. 2 means few, 10-15 means few, right? When we consider a particular country, 25-50 means also few, right? That means, right, when you consider country, 25 firms or 30 firms means that is few, only very few, right? So that's why many firms means like maybe restaurants, garages, right? And so many firms, right? So that's what we call competitive industry, right? So there are different market conditions. So therefore, when we move to the market structures, in fact, so soon we have only few cost concepts to discuss. After that, we can start market structures, right? In market structures, we before we analyze profitability, we are going to discuss the key features of the market structures. Then right, so we'll see what are the main factors that differentiate different markets, and based on that we can analyze the profitability. Okay. So here, actually, I think these long run cost curves, only long run cost curves we have to discuss under this cost of production, right? Only long run cost, because today these production concepts, right? So we discuss a number of production concepts, this Isopod curve, isocost curve, equilibrium, expansion path, and return to scale. And after that, a number of cost concepts also we discuss, right? So we need to discuss only the long run cost. So when we discuss long run cost, we can start the market structures, right? I think the key points relating to the long run cost, so maybe can discuss next day. So any questions relating to this, right? Actually, if you refer the recommended your textbook, so considerable area in that book we have covered here, that's why, as I can see many of you, right? So most of you refer the book and additional things. That's very good. So that is the important thing, because here since we have to discuss a little bit fast, because otherwise all the relevant points we will not be able to cover, right? So when we discuss the key points here, the detail, right, additional point, you can refer to the relevant, recommended textbook. I mentioned at least the key pages that you need to refer. In addition to that, the note that I have sent in refer. And related to the cost also, so you can see in your recommended textbook, if you refer page number 246, this cost curves, right? So you can see this the points we discussed here, total cost and the per unit cost curves. If you refer page number 246, right, 246 and up to 248, right? So these key points we discussed are given here. In fact, from page number 244, right? At least
you mentioned them on the Excel sheet, sir.
Yeah. So that I will mention here also. Right, because this note may be a summary for you, right? The key points I have indicated here, but detail, so the points we discuss here and the points included in the note and the study text, so you can refer to get a complete understanding, right? So any questions?
So one more thing.
Yeah.
Now, when we do this AFM,
Yeah.
we studied about this cost benefit analysis, and there
Okay,
we
yes.
studied like make or buy decisions,
Exactly.
which one can make sense. So
Yeah.
this intercept of this MC and ATC, from that
Yes.
point on, the quantity that we need to manufacture, to outsource or something, that can be extended from that theory, right?
Yes, yes. Because that make or buy decision, as you mentioned, so that also this cost analysis is important, because what are the costs that the firm can eliminate if they buy, but even if the company buys, certain costs they have to incur. For that, so as you mentioned, this marginal cost and average cost analysis useful.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, there are a lot of related points in different subjects. So, right. So, yeah. So when you so that means when you get a very good understanding, you can see the link. So much related, right? Sometimes one might feel these are totally different subjects, but these are very much related subjects. Yeah, economics and management accounting. In management accounting, so many economic concepts are there.
Yeah.
But the CVP analysis, there we do mainly using this fixed cost and variable cost, right?
Yeah.
Cost value profit analysis, break-even analysis, so very much related.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So then, from that point we can continue in the next session, and we can start market structures next day.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will send this note.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Himali.
ඔව් සර් හරි ඉවරයිනේ
හරි. ඉවරයි Himali.
හරි thank you sir මම සර්ගේ වීඩියෝස් දෙකක් විතර දාලා තින්නේ
හරි.
මම දාන්නම් මට චුට්ටක් සර්ට ඔය වීඩියෝස් වල අර මේවා ටිකක් ක්ලියර් එවන්න පුළුවන් වෙයිද කොහොමද
හරි මම description එක ක්ලියර් එවන්න.
හරි thank you sir
හිමාලි කොහෙද මේවා දාන්නේ තියෙන්නේ
YouTube එකේ දාලා තියෙන්නේ මම link එක එවන්නම්
හරි
description ටික අත්පස් හරි
Hari, okay.
Okay.
Right, thank you.